actually will. Recording. I'll actually try to record every class so that if you... Sorry about this. I'm a little discombobulated today. I'll actually try to record every class so that if you miss class, there'll be a video recording for you. All right, so let's take a look at the overview on page 3. Today, we'll do two distributions, the binomial distribution and the normal distribution. Normal distribution is just the standard bell curve. That is everything in this statistics class and pretty much everything in statistics. The normal distribution allows us to make assumptions about so many different things. What's the average income in a town? What is the average error rate? And we'll talk about that, and that will just provide the foundation for the stuff we'll talk about later on in the course. So we'll warm up with the binomial, and we'll see how that shows us the normal distribution, and that will be our base for today. Next week, we'll talk about determining a sample mean. So a mean is just an average. So what's the average amount of money that teenagers spend online? All right, we can't ask every single teenager, but we can take a sample, and we can determine how confident we are about that sample, and we can determine how big the market might be because of that data. We might also ask a question such as, what is the average income in this town? And can't ask everyone in the town, but we can take a sample, and we can make business decisions based on that. So next week we'll talk about sampling, developing those sample means. Class 3, we'll talk about proportions. Proportions are just percentages. A mean would be the average income in a town. A proportion would be between 0 and 100%, such as how likely are you to vote for Donald Trump? How likely are you to support this proposal? It would be between 0 and 100%. And a lot of things are the same when we calculate a mean and calculate a proportion, but there are just some differences. All right. Class 4, hypothesis testing. Has anyone heard of hypothesis testing before? All right, so you have a hypothesis, something you assume to be true, and then you will look for evidence to the contrary or evidence to support that conclusion. And it's just a scientific way of solving a problem, scientific way of asking a question. So suppose I'm going to assume that there are no errors, or that the error rate in this production process is less than 5%. All right, well, on the whole, it might be less than 5%, but maybe one day it might be 6% or 12% or 4%. It might fluctuate around there. So I'm going to set up some sort of hypothesis test to determine how high that error rate might have to be before I conclude that I'm positive that it has a higher error rate than 5%. So, just a scientific way to make those sorts of decisions, hypothesis testing. Class 5, we will take what we know about proportions, means, differences between means, and we will combine that with hypothesis testing. Now, there's been a slight change I mentioned on this syllabus from the one I sent you on Blackboard a week or so ago, and that is we do not have class on January 2nd. So I tried to think about, hey, come on, have a seat. There's two handouts right in the back. You can grab the syllabus and the class slides. I tried to think about how I wanted to present this material. I definitely considered just skipping this whole section of material, class 5, and maybe as you're looking at it right now, you may have thought, well, it would have been great if you just skipped that section of material. But the truth is, this material is just a combination of things. It's a combination of hypothesis testing and a combination of what we do in class 3. So it's honestly a good chance just to reflect on what we already know about those two things. It's not a lot more work. It's just a good summation. So for that reason, I decided to continue to give you that material. So I have a video which you can watch, which will demonstrate that material. And that's what we're going to do for class 5. So you'll have like 3 weeks to do that while you're watching the video. Maybe you'll be like, wish I didn't even have to watch this video. But once you get done, you'll say, all right, I feel like this was a good decision, and now I'm more confident about those principles with hypothesis testing. Because hypothesis testing is not too difficult, but I just have had students that get frustrated because they just haven't had enough time or enough exposure with it. So I think doing it this way is going to be best for you. All right, class 6, regression analysis. Who knows what regression analysis is? No? Not only do you not know, but there's a frown with regression analysis. All right, regression analysis is determining a correlation between two variables, such as the amount of time someone spends online and the amount of money someone spends online. So suppose one person spends 2 hours a week online, another person spends 50 hours a week online. Who do you think spends more money online? Yeah, you might, common sense, intuitively, you might say the person who spends 50 hours a week online is going to spend more money. So let's look at a sample of, say, 10, 30, 50 people. Let's ask them how much time they spend online. Let's ask them how much money they spend online. And let's draw a line. All right, so time spent online here, money spent online here. Let's plot all the data. All right, it has an upward sloping line. All right, there's a mathematical calculation we can use. If you tell me how much time you spend online, I can make an estimate of how much money you spend online. So I might target certain people to buy my products based on how much time they spend online. I might make certain business decisions with that information. So the predictive ability to determine how much money someone's going to spend online based on how much time. And of course, this could be anything. This could be the amount of advertising a company spends versus how much revenue they generate. Is there a correlation there? Like if there's no correlation there, like those two things are not related, then why would a company invest in advertising? You might crunch the numbers and say it doesn't matter how much you spend on advertising, you're still going to sell the same number of products. Or you might tell them very specifically, this is how much each dollar of advertising can bring in revenue. Okay, so that is regression. And the next class we'll look at multiple regression, which is multiple variables. So I still want to know how much money you spend online, but instead of just one variable, I'm going to look at 2 or 3 or 6. I want to know how much time you spend online. I want to know whether or not you have a job. I want to know how spontaneous you are with your spending habits. And I want to know your income. All right, if I have those 4 variables, maybe I'm going to get a different line. Maybe I'm going to get a more accurate line. Maybe I'm going to get a line that has a smaller confidence interval, where I can make more precise predictions. So we'll just think about how to do that with multiple regression. All right. Class 8, chi-squared tests. Chi-squared tests are an interesting culmination of what we'll do in this class. It's a slightly different way of looking at a lot of things. We'll look at test for independence. We will look at goodness of fit. So a test for independence would be a similar question. A test for independence would be a similar question we just asked. There's a syllabus and class slides there on the back if you need it. A test for independence would be a similar question we just asked with the regression. All right, how much time you spend online, is that related to how much money you spend online? So we could draw a regression line with that. We could also do a chi-squared test with that. We could also look at an independence test for something like If you're male or female, does that determine your likelihood to support a certain company change? All right, you might say, well, a larger percentage of men support this change, and a smaller percentage of women support this change. So gender and your support of this change are not independent. They're related. And a chi-squared is just a different way to do that. All right. Any questions so far? Are you excited? Intrigued? All right, have I wooed you in a little bit? All right, statistics has taken a little bit of a beating in the last month or so with the election results. We'll look a little bit about that. A lot of people were disappointed that the statisticians supposedly got it wrong. I really don't think the statisticians got it too wrong. I think the people who actually took the statisticians' numbers and tried to make more precise predictions are the ones who got it wrong. The statisticians just took the polls. The people I think who really got it wrong are the ones who said, based on all this data, there's a 90% chance that Hillary Clinton will win. Well, they were considering more than just the statisticians' numbers of proportions and means, but we'll talk a little bit about that as we get to it. I still think there's a lot of value in statistics, and I think there's a lot of work that you'll be doing as business people to support your business operations, and your ability to just understand the basics of this material will enhance your value in your company and whatever business you're working in. All right, so let's think a little bit about how this is going to work logistically. So, how do I do this? Let's go back to class 1. So you can see we've got the topic on class 1, and then we've got assignments. So these are assignments associated with class 1 material. I've got a couple sections I suggest you read. I've got chapter exercises that I suggest you do. And I've got Excel exercises that I would ask you to do for homework. So the chapter exercises, that is preparation for the quiz. So you have one quiz each week based on the previous week's material. So, and that quiz will be taken on Blackboard, and it will be due before the next class. So the material we cover tonight, binomial distribution, normal distribution. You'll take a look at chapter 2 exercises, 1, 2, chapter 4 exercises, 56, 58, chapter 5, so on and so forth. You'll work through those, practice those. Then you'll be feeling good about the material, feeling like you can answer those questions. Then you'll log on to Blackboard, and I'll pull up Blackboard in a minute. And you'll click on Quiz 1, Class 1 Quiz, and there will be a few questions, very similar to the chapter exercises. And you will answer those and get a grade each class. Does that make sense? Have you all taken quizzes on Blackboard before?
Are they timed?
They are timed. I think the first 4 or 5 quizzes are 90 minutes time limit, and the ones after that are 120 minutes time limit. The ones after that, sometimes you'll have to use Excel and some other complicating factors, so I give you a little extra time. It's not like the ones in the second half of the class are that much more difficult though. So, yeah.
So what is homework? Is homework just the quiz, or is homework like complete chapter? Like, so you have Excel exercises and then work on chapters. So which one's homework?
Yes. Okay. So the work chapter exercises, that is homework, and there's homework I would suggest you do to prepare for the quiz. Where it says complete chapter 2 Excel exercises, that's actual homework that you will turn in. So, you will have 2 things due next week for tonight's, based on the material you learned tonight. One will be the class 1 quiz, and you can look in the class 2 December 5th. See, it says bolded class 1 quiz complete via Blackboard prior to class, and submit chapter 2, 5, 6 Excel exercises via Blackboard. So, you'll for chapter 2 exercises, you'll look at the back of chapter 2, and you'll look at Excel exercise 1, 2, and 3, and there will be instructions there. It will say, here's 6 numbers, find the population mean, find the standard deviation. Do whatever it asks you to do in those exercises. And you will turn that in prior to class next week. Yes?
Are these in the textbook?
Yes. Yes. Does everyone have the textbook?
It says right.
Yeah, that looks right. 2014? Yeah, that's probably right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you need an extra week to get the textbook, that's okay.
Do we need the textbooks to do the homework?
Yeah, because the homework, the practice problems will be from the textbook, and the Excel exercises will also be from the textbook. In general, I like to ask that you have the quizzes done before coming to class the next week. I do ask that you have the Excel exercises done at the same time, but that's really not a big deal. If you need extra time to do the Excel exercises, that's fine. I've had students turn in Excel exercises a week or 2 late. I would recommend you do the Excel exercises just so you can reinforce the material. And also you don't want a bunch of Excel exercises to do as you're trying to cram for the next class. But I do ask that you get the quizzes done on time each week because we will go over the answers in the next class. Like the quiz questions for class 1 quiz, we'll go over those next week. So you want to have those done. But of course, if you need extra time for Excel, that's fine. Does that make sense? All right, for the Excel, I do have some Excel data sheets. Let me actually pull up Blackboard right now, and I will go over some of this, make sure you're, let's see. All right, so under course material, that's where everything is. All right, so we've got the class quizzes.
How did we get to that part right there? I'm sorry.
Let's see, so you will go, you'll log into Blackboard somehow. Let me see, it might look something like this. I don't know, actually.
You gotta copy and paste the link.
You can go directly
On
to
the
the
front.
mercy.edu and then click on Blackboard, and then you log in.
Okay, all right, so mercy.edu, click on Blackboard, log in with your Mercy credentials. Does that make sense? All right, and you should have maybe 2 or 3 classes, depending on how many you're taking, or 1 class, at least this class. And what happened? Where did I go? I'm looking for. All right, and everything in this class will be under course material. So for the class quizzes, all right, once you do the homework, you're feeling good about this, maybe you start, maybe even finish the Excel exercises, just reinforce the material a little bit that way. And you can use Excel on the quiz. You can use, the quizzes are all open book, open note. So whatever helps you get the right answers on the homework problems, the ones you work out in the textbook, those same techniques will help you get the right answers on the quizzes. Yes?
Once we open the quiz, do we need to do it straight through?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll click on quiz, you click on class 1 quiz. Alright, class 1 quiz, this is open book, open note, must be completed individually, so you can't share answers with other people, and text each other answers, please don't do that. It has a time limit of 1 hour and 30 minutes. This will save and submit automatically once time expires. Alright, then you'll click on begin and give you a little preview here. Alright, write down this as fast as you can. Alright, so there are 3 questions, 6 questions. Oh, there's an extra credit. There's an extra credit question on this first one. Keep this page. Yeah, so there's 5 questions and 1 extra credit question on the first quiz. So that's a quiz. For Excel. I've got these Excel worksheets. So for chapter 2, 5, and 6, you will just click on it and you can open it.
Or you just do it.
And we've got everything laid out here for you. So I think for chapter 2, you're required to do 1, 2, and 3. So when you're doing question 1, it will, I think it says, it asks you for the mean of all this data. So you'll click right in the orange. And I think I've been pretty good about putting the orange or the peach or whatever that is. These are the things that you're required to fill in. So there's a syllabus and class slides right behind you.
I want to make sure I'm in the right class. 110.
601? Yeah.
Okay.
601?
Yeah.
Business, quantitative,
Yeah.
stats. This again, we went over this earlier. Quantitative methods in business research.
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so the mean, so if you want the mean, are you all familiar with Excel? Used Excel a little bit? Or if you haven't, you might do something, it'll explain all this in the textbook. It'll literally walk you through what to do to calculate the mean in Excel. And it might be something like this. Equals,
Enable editing at top.
enable editing. Oh, thank you so much.
You click
All right. Equals average. This one. This one equals average. Open parentheses. Go over here. Select all these. I want the average of those. Boom. Mean is 35. Median. Gonna here. I don't even remember what this one is.
Median.
Equals median, equals median. Yes, very good. Median, open parentheses, this, boom, done. All right, so you do that for all of these, chapter 5, binomial probabilities, etc., and so forth. Save it when you're done, and then you will go back to course material, class assignments, click on class assignments, and this one, and you will upload and submit somehow. I don't know if your screen will look exactly like this. Normally, people just tinker around with it a little bit and they figure it out. Maybe there's a problem the first time, we'll work it out if we have to. But that's that. Alright, so that's quizzes, class assignments, class slides. Alright, so I will give you class slides, but I will post these.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Is
Yeah.
it possible that I don't have this because I just registered today? Because that's like, when I'm clicking on here, it's not coming out.
Let's see,
The course
so.
material and all that. If I click on, I just registered
Oh,
today.
that's 535.
Oh, that's, I'm in the wrong class.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're in the, who's your 535 teacher?
Okay.
Zarelli, yeah, he doesn't do anything on Blackboard.
Okay.
So yeah, just go back to like the home screen, I think on the upper right.
Right here, this is the one, right? This is
Bingo.
the- Okay, bingo.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, class slides. So I think it would be much to your benefit if you took a look at these class slides prior to coming to class. It will give you a good overview of what you're going to learn. I'll actually often reference certain examples that we're going to look at in the textbook. It's really a good way to skim through the chapter. And then maybe after you do that, you can look at the chapter and fill in a little bit of the information. And maybe even take an attempt at some of those homework problems. So I'm talking about before you even come to class. So for next week, you might look at the slides, read through those, try to think about what we're going to talk about in terms of sampling, confidence intervals, margin of error. You might take a crack at working some of the exercises. Maybe even take a crack at working some of the Excel exercises, just an hour or so, just to get yourself used to this material. I think that's the best way to do it. The more you know about this material coming in, I think the more you'll be able to absorb it when we go over it during class. That was my strategy in business school. I would come into earlier sections and just try to swipe some of the slides, because we didn't have stuff online when I went to business school so much. But I felt like those slides told me where the professor was going to gear the material, gave me the information I needed to be better positioned to absorb it. All right, so that's class slides. I'll have those up probably by Friday at the latest. All right, and Excel exercise data. We already went over that. Class video recordings. So I should, hopefully, unless something bad happens, have each of these classes recorded. So if you want to review some of the material, or if you miss class, you can click on class video recordings, and this will be a link which will take you right to YouTube. All right, any questions on any of that? All right, so a lot of things you have, a lot of materials you have to learn this material, and I would really recommend you use all of it. This class is often challenging for most MBA students. And I think it's going to take maybe 8 to 10 hours of outside preparation to really get a handle on the material. When we go over the material in class, normally I get good feedback that it's understandable, that you're able to understand the material as I teach it. The problem comes when we have the next class and it's a concept added onto that and you haven't really reinforced that. Because a lot of this stuff is not too complicated, but it's just simple concept built on top of simple concept, simple concept, which can be confusing if you don't stay on top of it. So I, again, recommend before class, you take a look at the slides, try to work a couple of the problems. After class, you really do those homework problems thoroughly. Do the Excel problems to get fluent with that material. And that should put you in good shape for the quiz. And when you take the quiz, after you take the quiz, you should be able to see all the answers. So after you submit the quiz, it'll show you all the answers, and you can actually look back at all the answers and see whether you got it right or wrong. And I'd recommend that you thoroughly look at that as well. Make sure you're comfortable and confident with that material before we move on to the next thing. If you're shaky on the first class, you're going to be even more shaky on the second class, and so on and so forth. Let me show you, I forgot that one thing. I'll show you about looking at answers to quizzes. So you can go to My Grades, all right, and it should show you all the stuff in the class. So you have class 1 quiz, and Excel exercises, and all right, so it should have a score here, right here, and I hope you can see that. It should have a score here for the score you got on that quiz. If I haven't graded it yet, it's going to have one of these. In either case, you can still see the answers to the quiz. You can either click on the score you got, or you can click right on the needs grading thing. Hope this works. No, it's not working. It's not working. Oh, sorry. All right, so first you click on Class 1 quiz, then you click on either this bubble or the score that you got. And I'm not going to click on it now because it's going to show you all the answers. All right. Yeah. All right, any questions?
So we should just read the textbook, practice the exercises in there, read the slides, and then go to the quizzes, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I've heard students say that the quizzes are easy compared to the homework.
The homework is in the textbook, right? The questions that are at.
Exactly.
Okay.
exactly.
Does the textbook have like the answers to the questions?
Yes, for almost all of the homework questions I've suggested you do to prepare for the quizzes, the answers are in the back of the book. I think the even answers are in the back of the book. So you should always have the answers to make sure you're on the right track. Alright, let me go through the syllabus and make sure I didn't miss anything. I think I went through pretty much everything. My information is on the top. Email, phone number, if you need to contact me. I have an office just down the hall. If you want to ask some questions, we can set up a time to send me an email. It's generally the best way. You can send me an email on this email, the zwilliams1@mercy.edu. You can also send me an email via Blackboard. I try to keep up on both. Sometimes Blackboard slips through the cracks. So if you want to get a hold of me right away, I would suggest the mercy.edu email. Okay. Attendance policy, you actually don't need to come to class. I hope I can make it exciting for you. I hope you will get something out of the classes that I teach, but you could always just watch the videos if you if you get the material that way. That is acceptable. But I would recommend highly that you come to class, but you're not required to. Plagiarism and cheating policy. The only thing is with all the online quizzes, I of course ask that you don't share answers. That is important. There are a couple of quizzes where I've calibrated some different types of quizzes. So some students will be taking different quizzes just to keep everyone honest. And for the final, I don't say this to scare anyone. I just honestly say this to impress you, to show you how much work I've done preparing this final. That I actually have 20 different versions of the final. It's a major pain to figure out how to get all these versions of the final to begin with. And it was even more of a pain to put all those versions of the final on Blackboard and assign each one of you a different version. So, for some of the quizzes, I will go to that level, and for the final, I will go to that level. So, please don't share answers with each other. You might get away with it, but you might not. So. Plus, you're losing out on developing and learning the material yourself if you share answers with others. Okay, so that's plagiarism and cheating. Textbook. I also recommend you have a calculator so you can do the homework and so you can answer questions on the quizzes, and we'll do problems in class sometimes. You could also use Excel if you feel fluent with that. You could use Excel while we're in class. You could use Excel in the homework and the quizzes. That's acceptable as well. All right, quizzes and exam, 8 weekly quizzes, 1 final exam, and the final exam will be what would have been our week 10. So instead of coming to class on week 10, you will log into Blackboard and take the final, which will be a culmination of everything. And the final will be very similar to all the quizzes. Will be problems that I test you on in the quizzes, will be the exact same thing I test you on during the final.
It will be?
Yes, exact same content. And the problems will be worded in a very similar fashion as well. For some of them, I just put in different numbers. For some of them, I changed the wording around a little bit. So, yeah, they're all steps in learning this material. Understand the intuition in class, practice with the homework problems, then you should be ready for the quizzes. You do well in the quizzes, or if you don't do so well on some questions on the quiz, make sure you're confident on that and you'll do well on the exam. And we'll of course talk more about the exam as we get there. Alright, and then you've got the outline, you've got assignments for each class on page 3 and page 4. Of course, we have winter break on, I guess, December 19 plus 7, December 26th, the day after Christmas, we won't come to class. Similarly, July 2nd, you will not come to class. And, of course, we have MLK Day, July 16th, January 16th, sorry. Saying July, sorry.
One of those, please.
Yes, sure.
Each one of these assignments that's written out on page 3 is the same thing that's inside of the Blackboard?
Yes, yes,
Thank you, I didn't know.
you bet.
Right.
So, the question,
Well,
yeah,
actually,
so
all of this is different.
the assignments are in bold. So the work chapter exercises, that is homework. It's not homework that you'll have to turn in, so, I'd recommend you do it. You're not graded on it.
Are we talking about page 3?
Yeah, on page 3. So work chapter exercises, read sections, that's stuff to prepare for class. If you look on class 2, you'll see 2 things in bold. Those are things that you need to turn in. One is the class 1 quiz, and the other is chapter 2, 5, 6 Excel exercises. And those are all on Blackboard.
And that's all due December 5th?
Yes, both those things are due December 5th prior to class. Make the quiz a priority. Excel, if you need a little extra time, that's not a problem. Question?
The weeks we don't have class, is anything due?
No.
Just bring it the following week?
Yep.
Okay.
Although for the December 19th hypothesis testing, I'd recommend you not wait 3 weeks to do that, even though technically nothing is due until January 9th. You might want to get that all out of the way so you can enjoy your Christmas. Or enjoy your holiday, excuse me. All right. We've got the grading policy on page 5, and we've just got a summary of assignments and point value. Excel exercises are worth 5 points. Each class quiz is worth 5 points. Total of 40 points for all the quizzes, 40 points for all the Excel exercises, and the final exam is worth 40 points. So 1/3 of the grades are quizzes, 1/3 of the grades are Excel, 1/3 of the grades are the final. The Excel, you should all get 40 out of 40. If you make a good effort, you get 5 out of 5. So that should be 100% for you. The quizzes, maybe you'll stumble a little bit because it's the first time you're doing material under pressure, but you'll see where you were weak, you can brush up on those. And like I mentioned, the exam is very similar to the quiz, so you should have a good chance to do well on that. The final, don't get me wrong, the final can be hard, but it is because you're doing all this all at once, and there's the pressure of like a 3-hour exam. But still, it is all the same stuff. Very much exactly the same as you'll see on the quizzes. All right, any questions on any of that? All right, so let's go ahead and do the material for tonight. Did I see any of you in Turbo recently? I saw a few of you. Yes? Good. So if I saw you in Turbo, this stuff we're going to do tonight should look familiar. If I didn't see you in Turbo, then you had 507. Right? So you should hopefully be feeling good about statistics a little bit in general. And if anyone feels that I'm going through this material too fast, slow me down, and we'll make it happen. We'll make it work. All right. So let's start. Alright, so the 2 key things we're going to talk about tonight, the binomial distribution, which will be a warm-up, or the normal distribution. Cool thing about the binomial distribution is we'll actually do the calculations. I'll show you how to do those calculations, you'll do them, and you're like, wow, I just created the normal distribution. And then we'll talk about what that means and what we can assume because of the normal distribution. Alright, so to lead up to the binomial probability distribution, I need to teach you a couple things. One, combinations, which is just a counting mechanism. How do you count how many combinations of a certain number of items we could have? And I'll also need to teach you just a couple things about probability. And that's going to give us what we need for the binomial. And then, as I mentioned, we'll say, wow, we just did the calculations to the binomial distribution. And that shows us a great example of a normal distribution. Normal distribution, the classic bell curve. Once we have the classic bell curve, we can evaluate it with measures of central tendency, which are the mean, the medium, and mode. Hopefully you've heard of those before. If you haven't, we'll just go over them and get you those definitions. And measures of dispersion, which means how wide this distribution is, how wide and short it is, or how skinny and tall this bell is, just the shape of the bell distribution. And we'll talk about the assumptions that we can make for a normal distribution. And one of those is we can give each point of data a z-score. And that tells us great things about commonalities. Commonalities between two completely different things that both happen to be normally distributed. Tells us the percent likelihood of certain things to happen, bottom line. All right, so we'll start with binomial distribution. Let me teach you combinations. Let me teach you some things about the multiplication rule of probability, and we'll be all set with that. All right, so combinations. Let's take a look here. So suppose I'm counting combinations. I want to know an answer to this first question. Suppose I have a group of 4 people, Ann, Ward, Jin, and Al. How many different teams of 2 could I have? Anyone want to take a guess? All right.
Is it like 4 combination 2, or is it 2 combination 4?
Yes, it is. You're right. All right, it's 4 combination. Let's see backwards here. 4 combination 2. All right, what's your name?
Danielle.
Danielle is ahead of us. Don't worry if you don't know how to do this. We'll learn that in a minute. So actually, let me just erase that because I don't want to distract anyone. So let's just think what the answer is. So we could have a team of Ann and Ward. That's 1. We could have a team of Ann and Jen. That's 2. We could have a team of Ann and Al. That's 3. All right, we've gone over all the teams with Ann on it. Now, how about all the teams with Ward on it? We've already got Ann and Ward. All right, how about Ward and Jen? That's 4. How about Ward and Al? That's 5. All right, so we've got all the teams with Ann, all the teams with Ward. Teams with Jen, we've already got Jen and Ward, Jen and Al, Jen and Ward, Jen and Ann. We need to add Jen and Al, that's 6. Do we have all the teams with Al?
Yes.
All right, so 6 is the answer. So there is a formula for that Danielle mentioned. It is this. If we have 4 things, we're going to call 4 our n, and we want combinations taken 2 at a time. We're going to call x2, and we're going to put a big letter C so that we know we're looking for combinations. So, all right, we're going to go combination, 4 things taken 2 at a time. And to use this combination formula, I need to teach you this factorial symbol. Does anyone know what this factorial symbol means? This n exclamation point?
So it would be 4 minus 3, 4 minus 2, 4 minus...
Yes, all multiplied together. So if I were to have this 4 factorial, this equals 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. All right, and that's 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 1 is 24. All right. 3 factorial would equal 3 times 2 times 1. 1 factorial equals 1. And 0 factorial also equals 1. The only tricky part is this 0 factorial. Reason for that, if I were to ask you how many teams of 0 could you have out of these 4, the answer, there's 1 team of 0, and it's no people are on the team. So you would like to write on a piece of paper, no one is on this team, here's your 1 answer. So 0 factorial is 1. Don't let that confuse you. 0 factorial is not 0. That will screw up everything. Not make that mistake. Alright, everyone understand this factorial? Alright, so our formula then for combination of n things taken x at a time is n factorial divided by n minus x factorial times x factorial. So let's do our problem. How many teams of 2 out of 4 people could we have? Alright, so we've got 4 is our n, 2 is our x, so 4 factorial divided by 4 minus 2 factorial times 2 factorial. Does everyone agree with me so far? Alright, so what's 4 factorial? 24, I like it. Alright, and what's 4 minus 2? 2. And what's 2 factorial?
2.
2. Yeah, 2 factorial is 2. So this breaks down to 2 factorial times 2 factorial. So 2 times 2 is 4. So we've got 4 in the denominator. Does everyone like how I got 4 in the denominator? I'll pause for a minute. It's really the only tricky stuff. So 4 minus 2 is 2 factorial. And we've got 2 factorial. We know that 2 factorial is 2 times 1. Alright, so this is 2 times 2. That equals 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6. That jives with our answer, right? Alright. Take a breath for a minute. So we've got our combination formula. We know the only tricky part, 0 factorial is 1. If I ask you how many teams of 0 could you have, the answer is 1. And I think that's it for combinations. Take just one breath here. Alright, let's do an example. So suppose Samir is selecting stocks for his portfolio. He has 13 candidate stocks from which he intends to select 8. How many different portfolios of 8 stocks are possible? So he has 13 different stocks. He's evaluated them. They're all like the value fund, the value companies he wants to invest in or whatever his preference is. How many different portfolios of 8 stocks are possible? So what is our n in this situation? 13. And what is our x in this situation? 8. All right, great. See if you can crunch that. Let's get a little practice with your calculators or Excel if you don't have a calculator. Or you can just take a breather and absorb.
How would you plug that into the calculator?
You know what, actually, who asked me that? Yeah, I've learned by trial and error I cannot do calculator tutoring because it distracts me and makes me dizzy. So I can't do it during class, I can do it after class. Or if you have an iPhone,
Yeah.
turn it to the side.
It says x factorial.
Yeah.
I see that.
So put in 4 and then hit the x factorial. Go against my own principle of helping with calculator tutoring.
You have 0.069.
How many combinations? That's 0.0. So 1/6 of 1 is how many combinations? I'm joking with you. That's not the right answer though. It's a number. Like he has, 13 stocks. You can choose combinations of 8. So it's some number. It's like
Yeah.
there's at least one
6
combination of 8, right?
So you were talking about that right
Yeah. All right.
now.
So what is it? What's the on top? 13 factorial. So that's like 6 billion, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
That's a long number.
So, but you have to do the whole formula. What's your name?
Kyle.
Kyle. You have to do the whole formula.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second. Let everyone else get it, and then we'll write it out together. Ready? If you have the answer, just blurt it out.
1287.
What's that?
1287.
1287 sounds right to me. You like that? 1,287 different combinations. So you want to figure out how to do 13 factorial in your calculator. 13 minus 8 is 7. So you do 7 factorial, multiply that times 8 factorial, whatever that comes out to, and you'll divide that 13 factorial, that huge number, 6 billion or something, divide that by whatever this comes out to, and you'll get 1287. Make sense? Good? All right. So that's combinations. The next thing I need to teach you before we're ready for the binomial is quick notes on probability. The probability of some event happening. You ready to move on to this? Feel free to say no. Take a breath. All right. The probability of some event happening, say rolling 4 on a 6-sided die, that might be what I would put in here, probability of rolling a 4 equals the number of outcomes that are favorable to that happening divided by the total number of possible outcomes. So say the probability of rolling a 4 on a 6-sided die, how many outcomes would be favorable to rolling a 4? 1. There's one way I can roll a 4. It says 4 on the 6-sided die. How many total outcomes are there? 6. So the probability of rolling a 4 equals 1 over 6. This is our fundamental rule of probability. You like that? Okay. Let's think about rolling 2 dice instead of 1. So I'm going to roll a die the first time. I'm going to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then I'm going to roll a second die, and I'm going to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Alright, so let's ask ourselves, how many total outcomes are possible in this event of me rolling 2 different dice?
12 sides.
12 is not the right answer. 12 is not the right answer.
Wait.
Yes, yes. Yes, the correct answer is 36. All right, 36, because there's 36 possible things that could happen. On the first die, I could roll a 1. All right, and then when I roll the second die, I could roll a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. All right, so that's 6 things that could happen right there. A 1 on the first die, a 1 on the second die. A 1 on the first die, a 2 on the second die. A 1 on the first die, a 3 on the second die. A 1 on the first die, a 4 on the second die. That's 6 things that could happen. Then I could roll a 2 on the first die. And there are 6 other things that could happen that I need to add to that. I could roll a 2 on the first die, a 1 on the second die. A 2 on the first die, a 2 on the second die. A 2 on the first die, a 3 on the second die. There's another 6 things that could happen. Then I could roll a 3 on the first die. And then there are 6 more things that could happen the second time I roll the die. 4, 5, 6.
So what are the numbers like in the chart, like the 8, the 9, the 10, the 11, the 12, like what is that?
Okay, those are the numbers added together. Yeah, I'm going to use that as part of my next example. So the numbers in the middle are the numbers added together. So if I roll a 4 the first die, a 3 the second die, add those two together and I get a 7. For right now, I want you to realize that each of these boxes is a different possible outcome. So how many total outcomes are possible in this event?
36.
36. All right, excellent. So, what is the probability of rolling a 6 on one roll? 1/6.
1/6.
What is the probability of rolling a 6 twice in a row, i.e. the first die is a 6 and the second die is a 6.
Wow.
Plus 36 times multiply.
All right, I hear grumblings of the correct answer.
You multiply them.
It's 1 out of 30, it's
Ye-
1 over 36.
Yeah, all right, so the correct answer that we just went over is 1 out of 36. So we know, based on our fundamental rule of probability, that there are 36 total outcomes possible in this event of rolling a die twice. And there's only one way that the outcome of rolling a 6 twice can happen. That's, we roll a 6 the first time, we roll a 6 the second time. There's no other way that can happen. So there's one outcome favorable, 36 possible outcomes. The probability of that happening is 1 out of 36.
Why wouldn't it be like 2 out of 36 though? 'Cause it's like 2 rolls, right?
Okay, I hear what you're saying. So,
Like that's
but,
what I
is,
would've.
but there's only one way. Tell me another way, Danielle, that could happen. Let's, is there any other way that I could roll a 6 twice besides rolling a 6 the first time and rolling a 6 the second
I
time?
mean, I just like, I consider that like 2 tries. So I would've, like, on the homework, if that was a question, I still would've put 2 out of 36. And I
Okay,
would've gotten it wrong.
all right. Well, let's look at it this way. 6 and 6, that adds up to 12. All right, so I'm gonna give you 2 dice to roll, all right, and I wanna know the probability of both those numbers adding up to 12. How many ways could that happen?
You roll it a couple of times. 6.
You're gonna roll it twice,
Right.
It's
okay.
gonna be 6 and 6.
It has to be 6 and
So
6.
that's like 1, okay.
Could you get like a 4 the first time
Yeah.
and an 8 the second time?
Yeah.
Could that happen? No, it can't happen. There's only 6-sided dice. You can't get a 1 the first time and an 11 the second time. You have to get a 6 the first time and you have to get a 6 the second time. Of these 36 different possible outcomes, there's only one that amounts to a total score of 12. All right, so the probability of rolling a 6 twice in a row, answer is 1 out of 36. We're good with that? All right, let me cover up the answer here. What is the probability of having 2 rolls add up to 8?
5 out of 36.
Can you see that? You have it on your slides. All right, so tell me about these 2 numbers. How did I get the bottom number?
Total.
Total and sample space, total number of outcomes. How did I get the top number?
2 and 6, 3 and 5, 4 and 4.
Yeah, the total ways that these could add up to 8. Well, I could get, what's your name again?
Christine?
Christine or Christine?
Christine.
Christine said I could get a 6 and a 2, I could get a 5 and a 3, I could get a
4 and
a
4.
4 and a 4, I could get this, I could get this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways this could happen over total outcomes of 36. And you could divide that on your calculator, it comes out to, I don't know, 0.114% or something like that.
0.13.
Yeah, about
13%. Okay, sorry, I was off by.
138.
Any questions on that? Wait, 0.138? I was only off by 0.2%. Okay. All right, somebody mentioned earlier that there's this multiplication rule. So instead of saying, what's the probability of getting a 6 twice in a row, instead of calculating all 36 possible outcomes, I can look at what's the probability of getting a 6 one time, what's the probability of getting 6 the second time. They're both 1/6. I can multiply those together and get 1 over 36. I'm going to show you this on the slide. I just wanted to give you a preview. So 1/6 times 1/6 equals 1 over 36. You just multiply the